My boyfriend leeched off me for 8 years. I paid for everything, did everything myself. But he dumped me because I forgot to fold his laundry and demanded I move out of my own house. I just smiled. This morning my phone was blowing up with messages from his sister. I'm Mia, and this is my confession. For nearly a decade, I thought I was building a future with Ethan in our Portland bungalow. I adored his charisma, his endless dreams of striking it rich. While he chased them, I worked grueling shifts as a paramedic, paying the mortgage, utilities, even his phone bill. Ethan's ventures, a failed food truck, a genius app that crashed, a TikTok influencer phase, never panned out. I believed in him, always. But 3 weeks ago, he got weird, snapping about unfolded towels, saying I was slacking. I ignored it, until he sat me down and said we were over. His reason? I wasn't domestic enough. I laughed, thinking he was kidding, but his smug grin said otherwise. The man I'd carried for years was calling me lazy. Then he suggested I move out. My house? The one I inherited from my dad? Why was he so sure he'd won? Ethan started treating the house like his personal kingdom. He'd sprawl on the couch, leaving takeout containers everywhere, talking about turning my study into his content studio. I was floored. This bungalow was mine. Every bill, every repair, in my name. Ethan never paid a dime, yet he acted like I was a guest. Then he went too far. He invited a woman over, Lila, all giggles with a bouquet of flowers. He gave her a tour, calling it my place, like I didn't exist. Lila gazed at him like he was a rock star. I clutched my water glass, torn between exploding and staying quiet. I chose quiet. I wanted to see how deep this delusion went. That night he cornered me, saying I needed to set a move-out date, so he and Lila could start fresh. In my own home? I nodded, saying I'd take care of it. His smirk was unbearable. What was his next move? The next day, while Ethan was out networking, I called a locksmith. By lunch, every lock was new. When he sauntered in, I hit him with it. Pack your stuff, you're out by tonight. His jaw dropped. You can't do this, it's our house. I slid the deed across the table. My name, only mine. He stammered, then pleaded, but I was stone. Lila arrived, expecting a cozy date, and found Ethan shoving clothes into a duffel. She blinked, confused. This isn't your house? He couldn't answer. By evening, they were gone. I poured a glass of wine, sank into my couch, and felt lighter than ever. But a week later, my friend Zoe texted me something wild. Ethan was telling everyone he was taking the house back. He claimed we had a verbal contract. A contract? I scoffed, but Zoe's next message chilled me. He's got a plan, Mia. What's he scheming now? Zoe said Ethan had been lying for months, telling friends I was the deadbeat, that he'd funded our life. He told his brother we were practically married, and I'd stolen the house. The nerve. He'd even thrown a pre-breakup party, toasting to his new start in my home. I was furious but focused. I sent a group text to our circle, attaching the deed and bills, all in my name, exposing his lies. Then I donated his leftover junk, his precious ring light included, to a women's shelter. I called his dad, who'd always been decent, and laid out the truth. He was stunned, apologizing for Ethan's mess. The group chat blew up, friends were outraged, a few defended Ethan, but I shut them down. Then Ethan called, screaming I'd destroyed him. I blocked him mid-rant. Days later, Lila texted me, apologizing. She said Ethan had lied to her too. Then she dropped a bomb. He was sleeping in his car. But was he really finished? A month later, my cousin Nate acted shifty at brunch. After some nudging, he confessed Ethan had hit him up for $4,000 to fight for my house. Nate, sharp as ever, didn't just fork it over. He made Ethan sign a loan contract, putting his beat-up van as collateral. I had to hand it to Nate. He was playing chess. He showed me Ethan's texts, wild claims that I'd promised him half the bungalow in a heart-to-heart. Half the house? The guy who forgot to pay for his own Netflix? Then Zoe sent me screenshots of Ethan's Instagram, where he painted me as a schemer who'd used him for his future millions. Millions? From the man who blew $8,000 on a viral dance video? He was telling everyone different stories, a secret engagement, a business deal, even claiming I'd trashed his custom desk. Desk? He broke at assembling it. Ethan's text turned unhinged, vowing to expose my secrets. What secrets? I saved every message. Then what did he try next? Ethan's lies were spiraling. Zoe said he'd told his gym buddy I'd forged the deed. Forged it. He claimed to another friend he'd paid the mortgage for years, conveniently forgetting I covered every cent. His stories got crazier. He told his barber I'd promised to gift him the house for his birthday, then backstabbed him. The man who forgot my birthday because he was perfecting his smoothie vlog? I was done playing nice. I posted on our group chat again, this time with bank statements showing my payments. 0 from Ethan. I also mailed his dad a polite letter with proof, just to seal it. The fallout was instant. Friends cut Ethan off, calling him out. His dad called, mortified, saying Ethan was lost. Then Lila messaged me again, saying Ethan had tried to crash at her place, but she kicked him out. She heard he was begging strangers for cash. Begging? That was new. I felt a chill. What lengths would he go to now? Then my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, pulled me aside while I was gardening. She looked uneasy, saying she'd seen Ethan lurking near my house at night, peering through my windows. My stomach dropped. Lurking? I thought he was just loud and delusional, but this was creepy. Mrs. Chen said he'd been chatting up neighbors, claiming he was checking on his property. My property? I checked my security cam footage. Sure enough, there he was, sneaking around at 2 a.m. I called the police, who issued a warning, but Ethan was gone when they checked. I upgraded my cameras and changed the locks again, just in case. Zoe texted that Ethan was now posting cryptic stories about reclaiming what's mine. His desperation was palpable, but so was my resolve. I wasn't scared, just pissed. Then my phone pinged with a message from Ethan's sister Ava. She sounded frantic. What had Ethan dragged her into? Ava's message was a gut punch. Ethan had convinced her to lend him $2,000 from her college fund, swearing he'd use it to buy back the house he'd earned. Earned? The guy who'd napped through my 12-hour shifts? Ava said he'd shown her old Venmo payments, ones I'd sent him for bills, claiming they proved he'd invested in the house. I was livid. He'd scammed his own sister. Ava begged me not to tell their dad, but I urged her to come clean. She promised to think about it. Meanwhile, Zoe sent me Ethan's latest post, a sob story about how I'd ruined his life by stealing his home. He'd tagged mutual friends, fishing for sympathy. A few fell for it, but most called him out. Then Ava texted again saying Ethan was at their parents' house, ranting about a plan to get the bungalow back. What was he cooking up now? Ava's text got wilder. Ethan was telling their parents he had legal proof. I tricked him into signing away his rights to the house. Legal proof? The man who once lost his wallet in his own backpack? Ava said he was waving around a crumpled notebook, claiming it had our agreement from years ago. I laughed, but my heart raced. Was he delusional or desperate enough to fake documents? Ava overheard him on the phone, talking about hiring a consultant to expose me. A consultant? With what money? I checked his social media, more rants about my betrayal, now with blurry photos of evidence that looked like coffee-stained scribbles. I screenshot everything just in case. Ava said their dad was skeptical, but worried Ethan might do something reckless. I wasn't scared, but I was done underestimating him. Then Zoe called, breathless. She'd seen Ethan at a bar, bragging about a big move to get the house. What was he planning? At work, my colleague Sam pulled me aside. He'd heard from a mutual friend that Ethan was asking around for a lawyer, claiming he had a slam-dunk case against me. A case? Based on what? Sam said Ethan was telling people I'd manipulated the inheritance process to cut him out. My dad's will was ironclad. Ethan wasn't even mentioned, but the lies were bold. Sam warned me Ethan had been seen with a shady guy, maybe the consultant, passing out flyers with my house's address, calling it stolen property. Flyers? That was unhinged. I drove home, checking my cameras. Nothing yet, but I felt exposed. Zoe sent me one of the flyers, my bungalow's photo with "Justice for Ethan" scrawled on it. My blood boiled. This wasn't just ego, it was obsession. I filed a police report, citing harassment. They promised to patrol my street. Then Ava texted, Ethan was back at their parents', now claiming he had a witness. A witness to what? The next day, Lila called, sounding shaken. She'd run into Ethan at a gas station, where he tried to convince her to testify that I'd promised him the house. Testify? Lila said he was frantic, offering her $500, probably Nate's loan money, to lie for him. She laughed him off, but he kept pushing, saying he'd make it worth her while. Lila recorded the whole thing and sent me the audio. Ethan's voice was desperate, promising her a cut of his house. I saved it, adding it to my growing file. I called Ava, who said Ethan's parents were fed up, threatening to kick him out. But he was doubling down, telling them he'd prove the house was his by next week. Prove it how? I installed a new alarm system, my paranoia spiking. Then Zoe forwarded me Ethan's latest post, a crowdfunding page titled, "Help Me Reclaim My Stolen Home." How far would this go? I clicked Ethan's crowdfunding page and my jaw hit the floor. He'd raised $1,500, spinning a tale about how I'd conned him out of his life's work. He posted photos of my bungalow, claiming he'd built it from nothing. Built it? He once flooded the bathroom forgetting to turn off the tap. The page had comments from strangers wishing him luck. I felt violated. I reported it, and the site took it down within hours, but Ethan was undeterred. Ava said he was now telling their cousins he'd paid the down payment before we even met. His mom called me, apologizing, saying they'd found his notebook. It was just doodles and fake contracts in his handwriting. They were done enabling him. Then my doorbell camera pinged late at night. It was Ethan banging on my door, yelling about his house. My heart pounded. What would he do next? I froze, watching Ethan on my camera screaming about his house. My finger hovered over the alarm button, but I called the police instead. They arrived in minutes, but Ethan had vanished. The officer said he'd face charges if caught on my property again. I barely slept, replaying his manic voice. The next day, Ava texted that Ethan had crashed at their parents' garage, ranting about a lawsuit to take back what's mine. Ava found his evidence, a folder of fake receipts and a contract with my signature clearly forged. She sent me photos. It was laughably bad, but his obsession scared me. Zoe said he was now emailing mutual friends, begging for character witnesses to prove I was a liar. Most ignored him, but a few were swayed. I forwarded the forged documents to the police, strengthening my case. Then my mailbox had a letter from Ethan, demanding I surrender the house or face consequences. Consequences? What was he capable of? The letter was unhinged, pages of Ethan claiming we'd sworn to share the house, that I'd stolen his dreams. He even mentioned Lila as his star witness. I laughed, but my hands shook. I scanned it and sent it to the police, who now considered Ethan a person of interest for harassment. Ava called, sobbing. She told their dad about the $2,000, and he was furious, confronting Ethan. Ethan stormed out, claiming he'd handle it himself. Zoe sent me Ethan's latest TikTok, a tearful video saying I'd destroyed him, with my house in the background. He'd filmed it from my street. My skin crawled. I checked my cameras. Nothing, but I felt watched. The police increased patrols, but Ethan was slippery. Then Nate texted. Ethan had tried to sell his van to pay for a lawyer. Sell it? That was Nate's collateral. I told Nate to repossess it. Then Ava sent a desperate voice note. What had Ethan done now? Ava's voice note was frantic. Ethan had told their cousins he was suing me for fraud, claiming he'd designed the bungalow's layout. Designed? He once got lost in our own backyard. Ava said he'd borrowed $1,000 from their grandma, promising to win the house and pay her back. She believed him. I was sick of his scams. I called his dad, who was livid, saying Ethan was cut off. No more garage, no more money. Zoe sent me Ethan's new crowdfunding attempt, this time on a sketchy site, with a sob story about losing his home to a vindictive ex. It had raised $300 before I reported it. Then my coworker Sam saw Ethan at a coffee shop trying to hire a guy to dig up dirt on me. Dirt? My life was an open book. I tightened my security again. Then my camera caught Ethan at 3 a.m., leaving a note on my car. What did it say? The note was chilling. "You'll regret this, Mia. The house is mine." Scribbled in marker, it felt like a threat. I bagged it for the police, who now had enough to issue a restraining order. Ethan was served at a friend's house where he'd been couch surfing. Ava said he tore it up, screaming he'd fight to the end. His parents were done, locking him out completely. Zoe sent me Ethan's latest post, a live stream where he rambled about justice, looking disheveled, parked near my neighborhood. Viewers egged him on, feeding his delusion. I felt trapped in my own home. The police warned he could face jail if he violated the order. Then Lila texted. Ethan had called her, begging for a place to stay, claiming he'd win soon. She blocked him. My gut said he was spiraling, but I couldn't relax. Then Ava called, her voice trembling. Ethan was at their grandma's, and it was bad. What had he pushed her to do? Ava's call shook me. Ethan had convinced their grandma to give him $5,000 from her retirement savings, claiming he needed it for a lawyer to save the house. Save it? He was scamming a 78-year-old. Ava said their grandma was confused, thinking Ethan was protecting the family legacy. I was furious. He'd stooped to exploiting her. Ava's dad was livid, demanding Ethan repay it, but he'd already spent half on a legal consultant who was just some guy from a Reddit thread. Zoe sent me Ethan's latest post, a photo of my bungalow with my home stolen, captioned, tagging local news outlets. He was trying to go public. I contacted a lawyer to protect myself, who said Ethan's case was nonsense but advised vigilance. Ava said their grandma was heartbroken, regretting trusting him. Then my camera caught Ethan again, dropping a flyer on my porch. Mia stole my life. My lawyer said it was evidence for a stalking charge. What was Ethan's next desperate move? My lawyer filed for a stronger restraining order, citing Ethan's flyers and videos. The police tracked him to a motel, where he'd been using his grandma's money to plan his comeback. They warned him, one more stunt, and he'd be arrested. Ava said their dad had confiscated Ethan's phone, finding texts to a witness, offering $200 to lie about me. The witness? A random barista Ethan barely knew. His dad was done, telling Ethan to leave Portland or face family exile. Zoe sent me Ethan's deleted post, a rant accusing me of hacking his accounts to silence him. Hacking? He'd left his passwords on my fridge. I felt safer with the legal protections, but Ethan's obsession was relentless. My lawyer found he'd tried filing a small claims case against me, but it was thrown out for lack of evidence. Then Lila texted. Ethan had shown up at her work, begging for proof of our deal. She called security. Then Ava's dad called me, sounding broken. What had Ethan done to them now? Ava's dad said Ethan had stolen his mom's credit card, racking up $3,000 in charges for legal fees and a new laptop. Their grandma was devastated, her savings nearly gone. His dad had reported Ethan to the police for fraud, a line they never thought they'd cross. Ava said Ethan was couch surfing again, telling friends he was days away from getting the house. Zoe sent me his latest TikTok, filmed in a parking lot, where he claimed I'd bribed the courts. He looked gaunt, unhinged, his followers dwindling. My lawyer said the fraud charges could land him in jail, especially with the restraining order. I felt a mix of relief and pity. He'd burned every bridge. Then Mrs. Chen called. Ethan was back in the neighborhood, handing out flyers to kids. Kids! I checked my cameras, and there he was, taping a sign to my mailbox. The police were on their way. What was on that sign? The sign read, Mia's a thief, help me get justice. It had my address and a QR code to his new crowdfunding scam. The police caught Ethan 2 blocks away, arresting him for violating the restraining order and harassment. Ava texted that their family was in chaos. Ethan's grandma was filing charges for the credit card theft, and his dad was done bailing him out. Zoe said Ethan's TikTok was suspended after users reported his lies. My lawyer said his arrest could lead to months in jail, given the mounting evidence. Forged documents, threats, fraud. I felt a weight lift, but my heart ached for Ava's family. Then Lila sent me a screenshot. Ethan, from a friend's account, posted a final rant, claiming he'd expose me from jail. Expose what? I was exhausted but stronger. Then Ava's dad asked to meet me at a diner, saying he had something to show me. What could it be? At the diner, Ava's dad looked exhausted, sliding a worn journal across the table. Ethan's, he said. I opened it, pages of frantic notes about winning the house, mixed with sketches of my bungalow and rants about my lies. It was Ethan's delusion laid bare. His dad said they'd found it in the garage, along with stolen family photos Ethan used to prove his ownership. He'd even written a fake will, claiming I'd agreed to give him the house. My lawyer would love this. Ava's dad apologized, saying Ethan's arrest was a relief, but a heartbreak. They'd enrolled him in a court-ordered program if he took a plea deal. Therapy, no jail. I nodded, torn between anger and pity. Then Zoe texted, Ethan's friend posted bail and he was out, but under strict surveillance. My lawyer said he couldn't contact me, but that night my camera caught a shadow near my gate. Was Ethan back already? The shadow wasn't Ethan. It was a teen dropping a pizza flyer, but my heart still raced. I was paranoid, checking cameras hourly. Ava said Ethan was staying with a friend, banned from social media as part of his bail. His family was pushing him to accept the plea deal, but he was resisting, still muttering about his house. My lawyer filed a civil suit for defamation, using Ethan's journal, flyers, and videos as evidence. It felt like overkill, but I needed peace. Zoe said Ethan's friends were abandoning him, tired of his lies. Lila texted that he'd tried calling her from a burner phone, begging for one last favor. She reported it to the police. Ava's dad sent me Ethan's old photos, him at family barbecues, always on his phone, scheming. It hurt to see. Then Mrs. Chen called. A stranger was asking neighbors about my house, claiming to be Ethan's agent. Agent? What new game was this? The agent was a scam artist Ethan had met online, promising to sell my house for a cut. The police caught him after Mrs. Chen's tip, and he flipped on Ethan, revealing texts where Ethan offered him $1,000 to scout my property. Ethan denied it, but the texts were damning. My lawyer said this violated his bail, likely sending him to jail. Ava said their grandma was recovering her money through fraud claims, but the family was shattered. Zoe sent me a message from Ethan's last friend. He was spiraling, blaming everyone but himself. I felt safer, but the toll was heavy. Sleepless nights, constant alerts. Then Ava texted. Ethan had sent her a letter from jail, apologizing, but still claiming the house was ours. My lawyer said it was admissible evidence. I was done hoping he'd change. Then my doorbell rang at midnight. Who was it this time? It wasn't Ethan, thank God, but Ava, tears streaming down her face. She'd driven over, clutching Ethan's letter. She read it aloud, a mix of apologies and delusions, begging her to tell Mia the truth about our deal. There was no deal. Ava was done protecting him. She'd shown the letter to their dad, who was filing it with the police. My lawyer said Ethan's plea deal was off. Jail time was certain now. I hugged Ava, both of us exhausted. Zoe texted that Ethan's online accounts were finally gone, his lies silenced. My civil suit was moving forward, and I'd likely win damages. For the first time, I felt the storm easing. But Ava's dad called, saying Ethan had one last message for me. What could he possibly say now? At the diner, Ava's dad sent me Ethan's message, a voicemail from jail. His voice cracked, saying he was sorry, but still insisting I'd promised him the house. It was pathetic, delusional. I saved it for my lawyer, who said it sealed Ethan's fate. 6 months in jail for harassment, fraud, and violating the restraining order. Ava said their family was grieving but relieved. Ethan needed this wake-up call. Zoe confirmed his online presence was dead. Even his last supporters had bailed. My civil suit was on track, with damages likely covering my legal fees. I started sleeping better, my camera's quiet. But Ava's dad warned Ethan's therapy program might let him write me again. I told my lawyer to block any contact. Then Zoe texted. A local news blog had picked up Ethan's story, calling him a scammer. My name was clear, but the exposure stung. I just wanted to move on. Then Mrs. Chen saw Ethan's van parked nearby. Was he out already? The van was empty. Nate had repossessed it after Ethan's arrest, and it was just waiting for pickup. I exhaled, but the scare lingered. Ava said Ethan was still in jail, writing letters to their grandma, begging for forgiveness. She wasn't budging. My lawyer won the civil suit, awarding me $10,000 for defamation, enough to fix my porch and take a vacation. I donated half to a fraud victim charity, feeling lighter. Zoe said Ethan's old TikTok fans were now mocking him online, his lies a local meme. Lila texted, saying she'd moved on, warning me Ethan might try contacting me post-release. I wasn't worried. My lawyer had a no-contact order ready. Ava's dad sent me a final photo. Ethan in high school, smiling before the schemes. It hurt, but I let it go. Then my mailbox had an envelope with no return address. My heart sank. Was it from Ethan? The envelope held a card from Ava's grandma, thanking me for exposing Ethan's lies. She'd recovered most of her money and wanted me to know she was okay. I teared up, relieved. Ava said Ethan's jail therapy was forcing him to face his delusions, but he'd be monitored after release. My lawyer confirmed the no-contact order was ironclad. Any violation meant more jail. Zoe texted that Ethan's consultant had been charged with fraud, closing that chapter. My bungalow felt like mine again. I even started gardening. Mrs. Chen and I laughed about the van scare over tea. But Ava called, saying Ethan's release was in a month, and he'd mentioned my name in therapy. My stomach twisted. I was stronger, but not naive. I checked my cameras, ready for anything. Then a stranger knocked on my door, saying he knew Ethan. What did he want? The stranger was Ethan's old coworker, Tim, who'd seen the news blog. He apologized, saying Ethan had lied to him about the house years ago, and he felt guilty for believing it. Tim offered to testify if I needed more evidence. I thanked him, but my case was closed. Ava said Ethan's therapy reports showed progress. He'd admitted some lies, but still struggled with reality. His release was delayed for violating jail rules, giving me more time. My lawyer said the $10,000 was in my account, and I booked a trip to Hawaii, craving peace. Zoe and Lila planned a girls' night to celebrate my freedom. My bungalow was my sanctuary again, my life mine. But Ava's last text said Ethan had asked about me again, sounding different. Different how? I wasn't sure I cared anymore. Then my phone buzzed with a restricted number. Was it him? The restricted number was a telemarketer, but my nerves were shot. I laughed it off, but Ava's text about Ethan's different tone stuck with me. She said his therapist reported he'd started admitting he never owned the house. But he still felt entitled to it. Entitled? After everything? Ava's dad said Ethan's release was pushed back again. He'd tried smuggling a phone into jail. My lawyer laughed, saying Ethan was his own worst enemy. I flew to Hawaii, soaking in the sun, my bungalow a distant worry. Zoe sent me a photo of my garden, thriving under Mrs. Chen's care. Lila texted that Ethan's old followers had started a Justice for Mia hashtag, flipping his narrative. I smiled, feeling vindicated. But Ava warned that Ethan's therapy letters were getting personal, mentioning our good times. Good times? I'd carried him for years. Then my lawyer called from Portland. Ethan had sent me something. What now? Back home, my lawyer handed me Ethan's letter, sent through the jail's program. It was short. He apologized for some lies, said he'd loved me, and asked for closure. Closure? My skin crawled. My lawyer said it didn't violate the no contact order, but I could request a block. I did, done with his games. Ava said Ethan's family was hopeful he'd change, but skeptical. Zoe texted that his last friend had cut him off after Ethan tried borrowing money again. My Hawaii trip had recharged me. I was painting my bungalow, planning a new career course. Mrs. Chen brought me cookies, saying the neighborhood was quiet. But Ava's dad called. Ethan's release was set for next week, and he'd be sent to a halfway house in Eugene. I felt safe, but cautious. Then Zoe sent a screenshot. A blog post from Ethan's jail friend, claiming I'd ruined Ethan's life. Was this his final shot? The blog post was nonsense, quickly debunked by Zoe's online sleuthing. The writer was a con artist Ethan had met in jail, with no credibility. My lawyer sent a cease and desist, and the post vanished. Ava said Ethan's halfway house had strict rules, no internet, mandatory work. His family hoped it'd force him to grow up. I was thriving, teaching first aid classes, my bungalow now a cozy haven. Lila and Zoe threw me a new beginnings party, and even Mrs. Chen joined, toasting to my strength. Ava's dad said Ethan had started a job at a warehouse, showing small signs of change. I didn't care. I was free. But Ava texted. Ethan's therapist said he'd written a final letter, but they'd held it back. My lawyer confirmed it was destroyed. I exhaled, ready to close this chapter. Then my doorbell camera pinged at dusk. Who was there? No one, just a delivery of flowers from Ava, thanking me for supporting her through Ethan's mess. I laughed, my paranoia fading. Ava said Ethan was adjusting to the halfway house, working daily, and hadn't mentioned the house in weeks. His family was cautiously optimistic, but I was done hoping. My lawyer closed the case, the no contact order permanent. I sold Ethan's old ring light online, using the cash to buy a new patio set. Zoe and Lila helped me host a barbecue, my bungalow alive with laughter. Mrs. Chen told stories of her own battles, calling me a warrior. I felt like one. Ava's dad sent a final update. Ethan had apologized to their grandma, starting to repay her. I wished him healing, but from afar. My life was mine, my home, my peace, my future. I looked at my garden, blooming under the stars, and knew I'd won.